Hey guys, welcome to this edition of the ITMI podcast with me, Dr. Jennifer Otter Bickerdike. I have a double dip of fabness on this week's podcast with Becky Tong, founder of Juicebox, which is a radio promotion, label, and management company. Becky is also an absolute powerhouse DJ and has spun records all over the place. Absolutely, I'm in love with her. She's fantastic. And all this by the age of 27. I also have the fantastic Shivas Howard Brown. Shivas has done A&R, he's worked with Pete Tong, he's managed Koji Radical, and this before the age of 30. One of the smartest guys I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. We talk about Notting Hill Carnival, talk about race, talk about vinyl, all kinds of fun stuff. We met up at BIMM London and just had an absolute gas, and we had to just cut ourselves off. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed speaking to these two guys. Take care and enjoy the episode. Hey guys, it's Dr. Jennifer Otter Bickerdike, and we're sitting here at the Hub in lovely, lovely London. It's an overcast, humid day. My hair is fully frizzing, and I'm with two of the best looking, coolest people I've met in the last, 2 hours. Becky Tong and Shivas Howard Brown.
Hi. Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for making time to come. So let's just talk about what you guys do and why, besides the fact that you're so attractive and smart. I've decided to have you on the podcast today. Becky, let's start with you. What do you do?
Oh, thanks. I'm going red. All the compliments. I am a music manager, radio plugger, and run a record label called Juicebox.
How do you not lose your mind?
It's a lot of multitasking, but I have slowly been, to be honest, I've been doing different things for years now, so it's kind of good to always have an array of things going on, I think. Keep challenging myself, but yeah, I don't know, I guess I'm organised.
We're going to get more into that in a second. And what about you, mister? Tell us what you do now.
So I'm an artist manager. I guess my development to where I've got to now started by DJing at a super young age, which then developed into working A&R, as in picking music for other DJs, some notable, myself as well. I DJed a lot in my early 20s. And subsequently ended up working at labels, signed quite a few interesting things. And then realised that I guess there wasn't as much creative control that you had working inside a major label, and I wanted more control over the artists that I work with, from the music to the brand, across the whole thing. So I left working with major labels about 3.5 years ago, and I've been working, managing artists independently since then.
Shiv and I met DJing together, actually.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Well, we had a mutual friend, and she was just like, you'd really get along. And I think it was like a couple months. I was in New York at the time. I did my first internship there at Atlantic Records when I was 20 years old.
How did you get that? Because I know a lot of people are like, how do you get these?
So my uncle, he's a Jewish VC guy in New York, but likes a lot of creative people, despite his profession not being that. So I got introduced to someone that was related to Julie Greenwald and Leo Cohen. And his name was Jonathan Reingold, and he'd actually just started a digital media kind of advertising setup inside Atlantic before any of like the artist pages were had any kind of ad rev or anything like that on them. This is like 2010, so Facebook had just come about. I think it was before things were even being advertised on Facebook, so it was quite early on. But yeah, I was super lucky to get that. It was a bit of a fluke to be working at Atlantic, because the guy that I got introduced to was actually working at a different media company before and moved to Atlantic, so the stars aligned. And then I was hanging out with this girl that we became quite close with, and she said, when we get back to London, you have to meet my friend Becky. It's the first time we met. We hit it off, and I think we were DJing together like at a show 2 weeks after that, 3 weeks after. Yeah.
Were you just on vinyl on the computer?
No, CDs.
No, I had CDs. Yeah. I would walk
you
around with I had like a whole pack of CDs.
Yeah.
I can't throw it away because I'm like, it's too much nostalgia in like this thing.
The massive book. When I used to DJ on CDs, like you'd have the...
It's so... And then you'd be like, where's that tune? Yeah. I was like, I can't believe I did that. It's crazy.
I DJ'd for the first time in probably 9 years this weekend, all vinyl.
Oh my god.
And it's so much more fun on vinyl.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah, Shiv's way more like cool like that. I collect vinyl and buy it, but I don't play on it. I need to learn.
The problem with the vinyl though is you're like, with CDs, it's so much easier to get one song or make a mix CD with like 20 different random tracks.
Yeah.
And like you're just seeing their DJ, you're like, oh my god, this is the only selection I have. I know it's so obvious.
But I think that's the point of it. Like it's always got to be quality over quantity, and I think the sentimental value that you would attach yourself to while playing a record is you have to know the track inside out. You can't look at a waveform.
Yes.
You don't always have a title. You have to memorize what all the labels look like, and you've got to understand. You've got to practice with the records. Even if you have 10 records, say there's 4 tracks on each one, you can play a 2-hour set with that if you know the records inside out.
Yeah, it's true.
And if you don't, then you're just going to be flicking through and playing stuff randomly. But that's why the best DJs that just play on vinyl, their records are extensions of their catalogue.
The knowledge, and it is
is
Yes.
Yeah, and all
that,
and like now, I'm not saying you guys or myself, but like everybody's a DJ, and it's like so different. What you're talking about is so different.
It's so different.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone can be a DJ, and everyone is a DJ. Like you can
with
pick
Spotify, like you
with
are
Spotify
a DJ.
now.
Yeah.
I saw someone posting last week that you now have Spotify Connect, which connects straight to CDJs, and you can actually mix and scratch all the tracks.
Can you do that yet?
I saw Bradley Zero, he'd connected his laptop to Spotify and he had it on the CDJs. I haven't tried it. It's something that I literally just saw this weekend.
I've heard that Pioneer are trying to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it opens up the doors to everyone, which I think is a great thing. We can't say that, barriers to entry being dropped across all industries is not a good thing. I think, power of information's, empowered populations across the world. However, you can't argue that, the pioneers of this time, invested their whole lives into spending all the times at the best record shops to get the best records, which were still, £5 to £10 each. And this is like, late 80s. They spent, people with a 10,000 record to 20,000 record collection that's been collecting their whole life, you know how much that's worth. But actually knowing and understanding that collection, takes a shitload of time. And with time, you do become a different type of DJ. You do read a crowd differently. You understand a room differently. Certain, records going to work better in different rooms depending on the size. And, I'm not your most prolific crazy DJ. I think I've been playing on vinyl maybe for like 4 or 5 years, but I still never play. Well, I have played a couple of vinyl only sets, but it's hard to hold a room if you're playing like a prime time set with vinyl only. That's really hard. If you're playing just like a shop gig and, people aren't necessarily dancing or something like that, it's a lot easier. But yeah, it's really hard, man. That's why only the best people play, on vinyl only.
We just went like, woo, the conversation, but that's fun. I love it. I love it. So you guys met DJing, like we just said.
Yeah.
How did you know you first wanted? Let's start with you, Becky. Like, what was your first thing? You're like, I want to work in the music business.
I was at art college doing an art foundation, and found it really difficult to produce art every day. So I was like, what else can I do that's creative? And I love music. My friends always tell me that I've got good taste. I didn't actually know that. I didn't know what good taste in music really was at that point, but a lot of my friends told me that I had good taste. So I was like, maybe music could be a thing. And then went on Facebook, put on that I wanted to find a job in music, and another friend of a friend like linked us who was offering a job in music at a management company. It was a festival. It was like a kind of jack of all trades kind of company that needed like an assistant. So I applied, and it was a cross between like working across management, working across as an A&R scout for the label, and also working on the festival that was running at the time. So I managed to get a job there whilst keeping my art foundation, and then realised that I didn't want to do art and I wanted to quit and just work in music because I found it so amazing and diverse.
That is incredible. So you basically just decided you wanted to do it and got a job. Like, that is so cool. Using the network. Yeah,
it was quite amazing how I kind of can't believe how, not how easy, it wasn't easy. Obviously you have to, you fight for it and show that you're willing and show up and, do all those things. But it felt like it all kind of fell into place and it was kind of meant to be, I guess.
That's interesting because you both have said that. They're both falling into place, meant to be.
Yeah. It is stars aligning a lot of it sometimes. Yeah. I mean, you can obviously create opportunities for yourself by, like, I did go on Facebook and I did try and find a job, and I did go to a few other interviews as well, and they didn't really work out. So I definitely think that, things kind of do fall into place how they're meant to.
I mean, I always used to say as well, like, music was my tender from a super young age. Like, I always had speakers in my bag at school. And what I brought to wherever it was, yo, have you heard this new record? And there were so many moments, I think, in my teens where I played people records that they'd never heard before, or even a genre that they'd never even experienced before. And I think that feeling of watching someone's face get extremely excited and then playing a song to the point that you hated it yourself.
I do that all the time, by the way.
Yeah, but it was a special thing. And then stepping into the professional world, you know, both Becky and I have grown up in creative families. Both of our fathers are musicians, DJs, whatever you want to call it, whichever way you want to spin it. But, you know, growing up around their friends in the house, those were our role models. So the second you go into a professional setup and you understand how to speak to all those people on a level, and you're not intimidated by anything you're kind of discussing, and you have like background knowledge on the lingo and things like that, which is just kind of like normal. That's your normal life. That's what your experience is. That's where you've come from. That's how you've experienced, you know, a social environment, whether it's a dinner party or a house party, you know, at a super young age. You know, then it just, it clicked into place. It made sense.
What do you think was your biggest career break? Like for you, what made you decide, Becky, what made you decide that I want to do my own company? Like what were kind of the experiences, or was there like that one thing that people are like, ooh, you did that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I worked at a label called Relentless Records, which is now part of Sony Music. It was part of Sony Music when I was there as well. So I worked there as an A&R scout and was doing radio plugging on the side. My boss, Shabs, was a bit of like an entrepreneur. He kind of taught me how to do more than one thing, which is kind of why I think I do more than one thing now. But yeah, we signed, when I was there, we signed a production duo called Bondax, who are amazing, talented producers and DJs. So we signed them there, and we also signed a few other kind of DJs and electronic music. A guy called Chris Malinchak, who had a big hit called So Good to Me. God, I nearly forgot what it was called. Which was an amazing project to work on. But I think my learning behind all of that, you know, what kind of came out of it was the fact that I was working at a label, but I couldn't actually be close to these artists. And I felt like I was signing them and part of the journey, but then also was really arm's length away from the creative and everything. And Bondax had such an amazing audience outside of a record label. They had a huge fan base. They were, you know, flying all over the world playing, you know, packed shows, but I felt so far away from everything. So I think that what made me want to leave and do management was Bondax and working in the label and seeing how they were earning all this money outside of like, but they weren't selling records. And at the time it was really hard to sell records. If you were, before like streaming kicked in, it was just a really hard space to be in. It was
especially
like,
with any specialist act, which
they were a specialist act, and they were, you know, they were getting played all over the radio, but they weren't like selling volumes and volumes of records.
But
so
extremely culturally relevant at the
exactly, time. Yeah. So I left at that point and kind of was like, I'm going to set up on my own and manage artists that I love and hopefully build them to the level that Bondax are at, and that will be my life. Hopefully.
Were you crapping your pants? Like, oh my God, how am I going to be on the Super Noodle? Am I going to be like, have like 200 roommates? You know?
The first year was a lot of anxiety. I remember just feeling a lot of self-doubt. And
I still feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm 30 next month and I still feel that way.
I think that's part of being an engaged human being, though, that's willing to take risks. Because at any time, any of us could, not that there's anything wrong with working at Sainsbury's, but at any time, we could be like, you know what, we're just going to go work at Sainsbury's or Costa or whatever.
And have a nice little... No, I was saying
I do fantasize about it. I can't lie. But
I know. My dream of like, I actually would quite like to like work at Planet Organic and like stack shelves. I actually would quite like that. No, but basically,
as my husband always says to me, I'm like, I just want to work at Lush, like sell some bath bombs.
It would be so nice.
So nice.
The grass for everyone is always greener.
It is. Why is it like that?
And I don't know if it's a sign of the times. I guess maybe this is where this conversation is going. Not super esoteric idea, but the grass is always greener. I was telling you a story before we started this podcast about. I think I was actually telling Lottie about this really lovely Jewish man that sat, we didn't sit me and my friend down, me and my friend were in this swimming pool jacuzzi thing, and he kind of cornered us. He said one thing that was very interesting: tomorrow never comes. And the reason that's connected to the grass is always greener is like, you can give yourself anxieties about tomorrow, you can worry about what happened yesterday, but really the most important place to be is the present, because that's the only reality we ever live in.
Yeah.
You know, tomorrow never comes. Yesterday, that's happened. That's
also, we always have to challenge ourselves.
Yeah, but that's why taking risks, they open doors.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't take a risk, you won't know what's on the other side, and you may think the grass is greener, but it may be terrible when you actually get through that door.
I actually just read the Shoe Dog Phil Knight book about the guy who started Nike.
Yeah, my flatmate read that. He said it's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I recommend everyone who wants to do their own business and grow their own business, or at one day have their own business. It's an amazing book for that. I won't go into it, but just say it's a good one.
I think, though, I mean, there's two things to pick up on. The grass is always greener. I was thinking that this morning. I'm like, when am I ever going to be happy? Like, when I step back, because I'm so engaged in, like, the treadmill is not a good analogy, because I'm always trying to push forward, and on a treadmill you're not moving anywhere.
And you can't go left or right.
Yeah, like I'm always trying to
west or east.
Yeah, I'm always
and
trying
a lot
to.
of things go west.
Yeah. I'm always trying to push things, you know, to change and grow, and it's very rare that I actually let myself, because, and I'm sure you guys are the same. Part of why you're good at what you do is because you're always go. But when you stop and like actually sit, and I'm like, oh my God, like I need to really reflect how lucky I am. And I don't know why I don't do that more. It really pisses me off.
Yeah. I actually agree, because you think, like, you just look out there on the street and you're like, can you imagine, like, you know, this is my life, and look at that person who's like homeless. Like, would you swap that for that? No, you have a roof over your head. You know, there's a lot of things to be grateful for. But yeah, I think we can all lose sight of that sometimes.
Well, I mean, it's that out of sight, out of mind. It's like, it takes seeing a homeless person, or even someone, you know, from a particular ethnic background. You can make so many judgments about where they've come from, what they've been through, and kind of be stuck up about giving over any of your change. You know, and that's the worrying thing. I think living in a city and being totally engrossed in yourself, your life, Instagram, Facebook, what other people are doing, not in a holistic way, is extremely detrimental. You know, the collective consciousness of the Western population is not collective at all.
I mean, here's something interesting. You guys are both, how old are you, Becky?
I'm 27.
Okay, so you guys are both, you know, are you in the millennial pocket, yeah?
Yeah.
So and you've grown up with technology. Like, for social media, do you like social media? Or what are your, you know?
I was like, I had Facebook in 2006, so I was 17, and it was MSN before that, you know, so I was lucky to have a pretty clean teens, I think, and we weren't like totally
engrossed in
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I was big into my video games at that age, and I think that was the kind of existential escape, whereas now it's, you know, looking at what other people are doing, and I think that's extremely unhealthy. The generation below us, Becky's younger brother, my younger sister, they're the same age. And they go through problems that I cannot relate to, and they cannot contextualize right now. So it's really hard to.
And that's related to social media, like what they're seeing or what they're.
Sure.
They are, but the thing is, they're also hyper aware of it as well. Like, they're hyper aware of like how things can look on Instagram and how things can feel. So they know like the fakeness of Instagram, but they're still engaging and still living through Instagram. So it's weird. Like, even though they do know how detrimental it can be, they also like are kind of still very like addicted to it and on it the whole time.
Yeah, that's where your persona lives.
So you kind of end up being a little bit jaded, I think. You're already a bit like you've already kind of got a chip on your shoulder about something that you shouldn't even be aware of, which is weird.
How, just back to the artist thing for a second, how important is social media for artists, do you think?
I think it is really important, but I have to also remember that not every artist wants to be all over social media. It kind of depends on like how they want to do it, because even though, like, for example, I manage Joe Hertz, who's a producer and an artist, but he doesn't want to be on social media the whole time. He kind of just is a bit of a recluse. Sometimes he just wants to be in the studio and make music the whole time. And for years I was like, Instagram, Twitter, tell the world what you're doing. It's really important. But if it doesn't come naturally to you, I don't think you can really force someone into it. Like, you kind of have to just let them do what they want to do. You can't like force someone to do something that they don't want to do. Whereas like you know, Amber, who's a bit younger, who's another artist that I look after, she's way more naturally like, you know, when she's feeling inspired, like she wants to share things and she wants to do things. But it's kind of like, it is important, but it's not the be all and end all. I mean, I always use someone like James Blake as an example, who literally goes off the map and then comes back whenever he wants to. But he still doesn't really live or die on social media. Like, he just makes art and it's, you know, people listen. So I think that there are artists out there that don't even really need it. But even Jai Pool, who's just come back like this week, like, it's like the music is so fucking good that it doesn't matter, you know, what outfit you're wearing today or what you're having for breakfast. I think certain things like just speak for themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think, Chiefs? What do you think?
I think to market yourself well, you have to have an insanely good idea and sense of self. With that in mind, I think the best artists in the world, the most prolific artists with the music that I think will last the longest, all those people are slightly unhinged. And I think expecting people to have an amazing sense of self when really their expression is inside their music, to be able to do that on social media, where it's like, you know, you have to know how you're tagging yourself, where you're tagging yourself. Everything becomes clickbait, otherwise it's not worth putting up.
Yeah.
I think that's why you have a team, because, you know, certain managers are going to be much better at helping you create that idea. But, you know, that being said, it's not always necessary. I think if the music is that special, you should be able to put a record out in a record store, and an amazing tastemaker will find that and gravitate towards it because it's great music and because it's honest and it's true. And they'll play the shit out of it until everyone else has heard it. It's just different to having a fully fledged team and plugging it on social media, getting a radio plugger, getting, you know, a creative director and all that other kind of stuff. I think there's many ways to grow a project, but ultimately, like, I think it has to start with great music.
It's very, what you guys are saying for me really strikes a chord of like honesty, you know, because there's something, not that it's dishonest on social media, but you're almost harkening back to kind of like the days when I was in the music business before social, when I worked at a label before social media, where this idea of like one fan at a time, you know, so you discover like you're talking about, you would turn people on to music they'd never heard before. That's the kind of thing, is like you saying this record's amazing, and then, you know, your friend buys it, and then so on and so forth. And that's the way I think you really build like a fan base that's going to last.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. Because if you get all of this team, if you get that makes sense. If you get a whole team around you to plug you all the time, and then it's like everyone's like, oh my god, this person's going to be the next big thing because they've got this team and they've got this creative direction, they've got this thing, and and it's like, and then they put something out, and then if it doesn't continue, if it doesn't keep building, it's like, and it all falls to shit. Like there's no real platform there, and audience is the best first platform that you can have as a musician. I think the audience and building fans is the key part here.
There's no set way that anyone became huge, you know. But I think if you're honest with anything, any creation of any art, that speaks, you know, for itself in the product. You know, I often start emails. There's certain people that I'll send emails to if I want them to listen to something, and I won't even write anything. I'll just be like, this hopefully will speak for itself based on what I know about their taste. And I think everyone needs to be a bit more targeted, but then everyone needs to understand culture a lot more, and people actually don't have time to dig into the cultural background of anything. You know, this actually was something that we were speaking about on a panel. To become a specialist purveyor, you've got to spend years studying something. You know, there's not that many people that have the time for that anymore. You know, and I think the millennials that are going to break out, there's definitely a line of culture that they've studied through and through, or, you know, they've had access to books from their parents that have been on the coffee table that they've really, you know, found a line of excitement in, and then continued that research, and then the product that comes out is a representation of that, whether that's fashion, whether that's art. You know, there's some amazing new artists, painters and drawers that are kind of coming out, and you can see where they get their influences from, but it's an honest regurgitation of what they've experienced.
I mean, what if it's another level of celebrity we're just not going to see, like the Prince, the Michael Jacksons, the Bonos, the, like, you know what I mean, the Mick Jaggers.
I know what you mean. It's hard to see how new things can come out of things that have already been done so well. But
there's just so much. There's too much noise, really.
Yes.
There's too much noise for things to incubate themselves.
Yes.
I always use this analogy of you know, dubstep being the last genre that took over the world and probably will be the last one because of the timing. You know, about 2 or 3 years before dubstep, you know, was even, you know, being played at Fabric. You know, Scream, Hatcher, Plastician, Benga, you know, they've been working in that record shop while they were at school. But the reason, the amazing thing about that sound just being incubated inside that record store is obviously they were all making music together, and because they had that time to literally just develop an idea, you know, it again comes from remix culture, because, you know, jungle, garage were both, you know, sample led. So was dubstep, and because they had enough time to sample all those records that were in the record store, actually make it into a sound, understand that, okay, this is going to be anchored to 140 BPM, but it's not grime, and then say, okay, cool, we're going to take this to the stage now, start putting out records. You know, everything escalated super quickly to having, you know, this Skrillex, this worldwide artist that took a sound that was actually, you know, like an amalgamation of dub and black cultures, and the kind of underground and underbelly of London, and into some kind of bastardized Skrillex.
Yeah,
whatever
I
you
actually
wanna call
think it is going to be hard to see how, like, we can have this time to incubate, because everything moves so fast, and if you're not at a place by a certain amount of time, people are like, oh,
onto the next sound.
Yeah, onto the next sound, or like,
And metric led too.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's it.
Exactly.
It's like, you know, what you're talking about is art and
Yeah.
creating not just a scene, but like, it's not about the commodification or the numbers
no.
attached to it.
No.
You know, and what? Sorry,
it's a
Becky, I think-
movement. It's a
yeah.
whole movement.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, everything is graded and rated by numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
it's
most,
so annoying, isn't it?
most execs at labels would be like, "What's the numbers like?"
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
hold
Yeah.
on, didn't I just play you something
Yeah.
that you fucking loved?
Yeah.
And you're asking about the numbers. No,
Yeah.
aren't we in the business of art here? Like, why can't we? Why
Yeah,
can't
we
we
need
work
to be
out?
making more decisions and bringing people. It doesn't matter about numbers. It shouldn't matter. There needs to be a scene. There needs to be more of a scene and a culture again.
I think people being unavailable and off the grid
I totally agree.
will lend itself to any new scene or style.
But don't you think also having to
developing.
invest in it? Like, I personally, I mean, I love streaming for convenience, but I hate streaming in terms of, for £10, you can have as much music as you want. You don't know what the person looks like. You can move on to the next thing. Like, when you buy that CD or that cassette, even if you don't like it, you've purchased it, and you have to, like, you only have a finite amount of, like, when we were talking about this goes back to the DJing thing in a way. You only have what's in that case, you know?
I actually still do buy music. I do go. I usually find something on streaming, and then if I really love it, then I'll go buy it.
You will,
because
yeah.
obviously, because if you're DJing, you need to own the music. So I think that, like, I'm so happy that I actually still invest in music like that, because it means that it's going to sit on my library forever, and one day that library will, I don't know, I love going back down to, you know, all the tracks I used to buy, like, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and thinking, fuck, I used to love that so much. It's so nice to, like, it's almost like your personal catalogue of things that you
It's
can
your
invest
history.
in.
Until
Yeah.
your laptop
Yeah.
becomes full, and then you have to delete, like, all the dubstep and drum and bass. because
Never,
you think you'll
never,
gonna listen
no,
to it.
never.
No, I have. It's backed up, but it's not on my laptop anymore. But yeah, you can't put a price on. You know, I mean, Krangbin as an example. You know, they, you know, did a boiler room like 2 years ago, and then I think beginning of last year, everyone started jumping on it, and it's an amazing piece of music. It's an amazing mood. It definitely
Love it.
lends itself to streaming, but it was something that I love so much. I was like, why would I not want the vinyl? There's not a price that you can put on the value of the feeling and emotion that music can
It's like
give
buying
you.
a book, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then passing that book on to, like, someone that you know,
Yeah.
got a sentimental value.
I think the best gifts that I've given and the best received gifts have been probably records or music related.
Can you imagine being like, I'm sending you this file. I hope
Yeah,
you like
it's
it.
just
Or like,
not romantic,
yeah,
is it?
you like some guy. You're like,
The amount of birthday
here's-
presents that Shiva's given
Yeah.
me of, like, you know, vinyl records. I mean,
They're very good presents.
Yeah, my favourite gifts as well are my records, for sure.
I don't hate every white guy at Carnival with their fresh Air Max and
I'm
their
just jealous of the Air Max.
with their boiler room t-shirt on. It's like,
No, they probably grew up at their black friend's house with their black mum cooking them food, and the dad playing the dub plates in the living room. Do you know what I mean? There's probably been a moment that they've experienced it. And yeah, I mean, that's the problem with just, making judgments on the way people look. You cannot vilify those people wanting to be part of something that obviously is and looks extremely fun. You can't turn around and say Virgil Abloh's a bad person because he's been essentially a culture vulture, curated the culture, right? And the people, the tastemakers and the influencers and whatever, and he's produced a fashion line and, an amazing set design that's like, an amalgamation of the time and the culture. You can't shoot those people down because they've done it, they've been there, they've been part of it. And there's probably some of those Trustafarians that are producing music or maybe involved in the design of the speakers for that sound system. It's easy to like tarnish everyone with the same brush because of the way they look.
What I don't like about I don't like about the stigma around Carnival is like, oh, don't go to Carnival because you're going to get stabbed and it's going to be like this, and it's like, well, London is a bit rough around the edges, and
always has been.
You need to like, yes, you could get caught up in something. I've been to Carnival so many times and had literally all of my stuff stolen from me, but I look like a target, so I'm not gonna I'm turning up to Carnival, I'm white, I have blonde hair, and I'm dancing to dubstep, so it's just
if you can accept that, then it's not going to eat you up.
That's the thing. I could have walked away from it being like, I hate Carnival, I'm never going back, but I'm like, yeah, you know what, that happens, but I still had the best time.
I didn't go last year for the first time in about 8 years. I mean, I did throw Drew Lamb's 30th birthday on a Saturday, so when I woke up on Sunday I was just like,
I'm not moving.
And then I didn't make it Monday. But if you actually read into the history of Carnival, an amazing book, Don Lett's Culture Clash, because obviously he was the first black man to work in a shop on King's Road. I think his shop that he worked in was next door to Vivienne Westwood. And amazing stories about being a black man in an extremely white town and just how he maneuvered through that to become who he is today. Obviously all the stories with Bob Marley and all that kind of stuff are amazing, but that's a really good book because it just explains that Notting Hill Carnival was created because it was where all of the disadvantaged people that they brought in from the rest of the Commonwealth, whether that was the Caribbean or whatever, post Windrush generation, sorry, not generation, but just post the Windrush, there was this massive community that were ignored. So they were like, how do we celebrate the fact that we have Portuguese, St. Lucian, Jamaican, Antiguan communities, even some Spanish communities, all in one part of London. I think it was Clapham, Notting Hill, right, is where they were all brought to and processed when they landed in the UK. The story behind that makes you realise, okay, cool, then there's something to celebrate here. And yeah, cool, loads of people can go and just go for a good time, but actually when you engage with what it's about and what it's there for, then you can go and watch the floats and understand why these people dance and dress up, and it's a celebration of culture. People are proud to have made it this far in this extremely impressive white world, so if the white people want to come and join in, great. That's the catalyst for education and conversation.
And I was just going to move on to the fact that I'm glad that they're making it 3 days long this year, because they're making it 3 days long because I think for years it's been trying to be shut down because of all of the rich white people that have moved into the area because of the cultural coolness.
The council's rich, man.
No, but this is what I'm saying. It's like the reason why they wanted to shut it down is because the rich people didn't like it, having it on their doorstep. But the reason why the rich people lived there is because of the fact that Notting Hill was made cool. Because of the cool culture that those people brought to the area, and now you want to shut it down? No.
Tell me where else you have a bunch of, middle, upper class white people that want to paint all their houses different colours.
This is my big issue with San Francisco and California, where I'm from, and the same thing that we're talking about here. You came there because of the cool, the weird, the people that there was an environment where people could have a float, and now you've destroyed. It's like the Lorax. Like the Lorax is like the best thing. The Dr. Seuss. We're like, you'd come there because of that, and then you rape all the natural resources. And you just leave this barren landscape.
And expect it to regenerate itself.
Exactly. So they're crushing out, they want to crush out the Notting Hill Carnival, which is the reason that they came in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And now I see all the Instagram bloggers outside, because I lived in Notting Hill for 5 years. I was lucky enough to live in one of my friend's flats, which was bang in the middle of Carnival, and me being on the doorstep of Carnival for so long, and then seeing how
Did you see it change in front of your eyes, Becky?
Yeah, I did. I saw, over the last 5 years, I had, the last 2 years were weirdly quiet for Carnival, I think. I think it's just shocked me as, I used to see floods and floods and floods of people all over my street, and now I'm just like, where are they? Like, it's because they've moved the stages further away because they don't want, the rich people probably don't want the stages on their doorstep anymore, and they want it, and they probably petitioned to it not to be. And I think that it's 1 or 2 days out of your life that you could just let these people do what they want, and why have you asked them to move? It's just like, it's just mental.
It's like, you know what you're getting into when you move there.
Yeah,
Isn't like,
exactly.
surprise!
You wanted to move there.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
wanted to move there.
Exactly.
Anyway,
I adore you and love you both. And
It's been great.
yeah, thank
it's
you.
been so fun.
Anyway, thanks so much, guys, for listening, and we'll catch you later. Thanks for listening to this episode of the ITMI podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, give us 5 stars, share with your friends, share with your enemies. We're available on all platforms, including SoundCloud and YouTube. If you have any suggestions, questions, or people you'd like to hear us interview for the podcast, then please drop us a line through our email address that's in the description. Thanks, and catch you next time.